Okay, so it's 6 o'clock and we'll crack on with the Zoom call. For anyone who jumps on in between, hopefully we'll have time to go through any questions you've got, but for the time being, I'm just going to crack on with the questions that have been sent in. So only 2 questions this week. This may or may not relate to you as a player, but you might be able to get some value from it. Maybe it's a question you've got yourself. The first one we got was that training sessions are always on a Monday and a Wednesday and games on a Saturday. So training sessions, I'm assuming, being club training sessions, so that means you're training Monday, you're training Wednesday, and you've got a game on a Saturday. Based on this scenario, what would be the best days to go to the gym to make sure you're 100% by Saturday? Now, this is an important question because the end of this, the 100% on a Saturday, is going to be the most important thing for you as a football player. So what we're going to look at is something that you may have seen me talk about before, and I'll just go full screen for this. So when it comes to planning your football training week, keep in mind the peak performance protocol. Now, this is going to be relevant to all season, but in season is what your question is asking. So ignoring the sort of days here, like that could easily be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Saturday to Saturday. However, let's just look at your own scenario. So you play on a Saturday. Now, you know there's one block here where you need to perform, and that for you was the 100% on a Saturday. So then after that Saturday, you know you need to have 2 days or 48 hours where you're in a recovery block. Now, we'll go into detail in a second of what that recovery block actually is, but that's what you need to keep in mind. So regardless of when your game is, so even if you play a midweek game on a Tuesday, you're going to have around 24 to 48 hours of a recovery block. That doesn't mean you don't train or don't have to train. It just means you have to do certain things or avoid certain things to ensure you can actually recover. Because after you recover, more often than not, you're going to go into a build phase or potentially a prepare phase, but mostly a build phase. The build phase is usually what would probably happen on your Wednesday night with your football team. The Wednesday night probably is your harder of the 2 training sessions, I'm assuming. The Monday shouldn't be too tough because it's in that recovery block. The Wednesday gives you enough time to work hard, build fitness, stress the body, but have enough time to recover in time to get back to this performance. So as you can see, there's 4 phases. Phase 1, perform. Phase 2, recover. Phase 3, build. And then the last phase would be prepare. Now, the preparation phase, as you can see, with the columns dipping down, the intensity starts to come down, or the volume starts to come down. In most cases, the intensity remains, so you might still do some short sprints, or jumps, or little 2v2s, 4v4s with your squad, or lifting heavy weights, but the volume is far lower to avoid that soreness getting into game day. So keep this in mind for any sort of scheduling moving forward. If you've got 7 days between your games, you're going to have a performance day, which is the day what matters most to you, about 48 hours of a recovery block, which again we'll go into in a second, and then you've got 2 to 3 days of build, and then usually 1 to 3 days of preparation, depending on how far apart these games are. What often happens is if you had a midweek game, this build phase is gone pretty much. You've pretty much eliminated it. So what I want you to look at here would be each section. So you've got game day, performance, which is your routine, focus, physical, psychological, all of this is 100%. So you've 100% focus, you've got your own routine, and then you've got your physical demands and your psychological demands of the game. Then we've got recovery. So as you can see here, 24 to 48 hours post-match. It can be 36 hours, but you'll probably find yourself that if you're playing games at like 30, like the day after a game, you're not too sore, but getting into that night or the next day, so the 48 hour sort of second day, that's when the soreness starts to come. So on these recovery days, like relaxation is a part of it. Obviously we want to sleep, we want to be able to chill out a little bit, but then as we push through those 2 days, we can do some upper body work, we can do some core work. I quite like, this is when you'll see in your programmes some chances to maybe build your upper body a little bit, maybe higher rep work on the upper body and some strength work in the upper body. It's not too taxing, you're not going to failure or anything like that, because that's going to make you feel even sore and heavy because of the nervous system demands And what I mean by that is, if you push your body to a max on anything, obviously your whole body has to work to help you do that, and then you're going to have to recover from that. We want to stimulate your upper body, get some strength gains, maybe get some muscle gains, but leave the lower body to recover, but also allow the nervous system to recover a little bit as well. Now, this is also a good chance for you to work on your skill work, some really low level stuff you don't have to overthink, like passing off a wall, just working on some crosses, or working on some short passing, not necessarily shooting, or like long range passes where you're having to really work the hip flexors and the hammies and the glutes, and potentially risk maybe getting a little niggling injury just because you're just working on a repetitive task using those muscles that are already fatigued. Light aerobic work again works really well in here. Just light work on a bike, rowing machine, or if it's on that sort of 30, 60, 40 hour mark, you can be on a football pitch doing light technical work. Again, for you on that Monday, that is when you be doing things with your squad. It's out with your control mate, because they're going to dictate what the training session looks like. But ideally, it's light aerobic work or light skill work. It's not too taxing. You shouldn't leave that Monday night session exhausted. If you are, it's probably been too hard. As you can see, lower body strength and high intensity runs are not what we want to be doing here, because this is going to put us into a stage of needing even more recovery, and you're not even going to get a lot out of your body for these two, because it needs a lot of intensity. When you go to the build phase, which is 3 days after the last game, or 3 to 4 days after the next game, until the next game, you're going to do the heavy strength and power work. You're going to do your high intensity runs, because you're fresh from recovering from your last game, and in addition to that, you've got a bit of time until your next game, so you can afford to be a little bit sore because you can recover in time. This is when you can go high intensity and do things that do make you a little sore. Things like change of direction, high intensity running, heavy strength and power with a bit more volume can make you sore. Skill and conditioning games are going to happen if you're with a squad, and then as you can see, it's not a great time to take a day off, sort of middle of the week, because that's when you have your best chance to actually make some improvements, i.e. build. Then you go into the preparation phase. Preparation phase is pretty much 1 or 2 days until your next game. This is when you'll see in the programme, if you've been working with us already, the jumps, sort of body weight jumps or low weight jumps, explosive movements, long rest periods, still got some upper body and strength work in there, some core work, but it's really working on quality work over just getting lots of volume in. Too much volume here is what's going to make you sore. You can still get an intensity, so the weight can still be fairly high, but as long as it's low reps or low sets, the speed can still be high. You can still do sprints, but again, we need low reps, low total distance, because too much of it is when it starts to seep into game day. Again, high intensity conditioning, and then a day off is ideal to avoid. So you want to avoid having high intensity conditioning and avoid having a complete day off on this day, because you want to keep your body ticking over coming into game day. So I'll give you an example of a midweek game as well. We'll skip that so it's not too long a video. Off season similar, because again we don't have a perform day. We're off season, so we can just build, recover, build, recover, build, recover. And as you can see here, you just vary like the volume of these sessions. Some days are harder than others, but you're always trying to improve because it's the off season and you don't have a game to worry about being sore because of. So with all that in mind, we'll go back to the very start and look at your actual schedule. So if this is your Saturday, Sunday could be off. Monday, that says recover. So for you, you're not in control of your squad session. You're not in control of your squad session, so there's not a lot you can do in terms of on the pitch stuff there. You can't dictate what the club do with you, so you just need to roll with that. Alright, so if they want to end up doing a hard session, then that's something you just need to deal with. That's just what happens at some football clubs. If it's clever and it's a good recovery session, or it's a low intensity sort of skill and tactical session, you'll get a good session out of it and you'll feel absolutely fine. But from a standpoint of gym work, you want to look at this here. So you do your upper body and core work on this day ideally. If you can't, because of scheduling, like you've got work during the day and you can't get there, and then you've got training at night, what I would recommend is you do it on the Tuesday morning. So you do Saturday game, Sunday off, you then have your squad session here, and then a Tuesday morning you would then do an upper body day. That'd be one option. Second option would be, sorry, let me rephrase that. First option would be doing it on the same day as that Monday session. So Monday morning, do your gym session, or Sunday, do your gym session, so upper body and core. Monday, you're on the pitch with your squad. You could be doing that in the morning if you want with the gym work, but ideally you're doing your gym work in one of these 2 days, upper body and core. Alternatively, you don't do the upper body work, you just scrap the upper body altogether and you just get a little bit of stimulus of it in here. But for you, let's try and get one of those 2 days, Sunday or Monday, with your gym session, upper body and core. Then your lower body session, which will be your second session, which will be your strength and power session, I would recommend doing that on the Tuesday or the Wednesday. Obviously, if you're doing your upper body session on the Tuesday, you're not going to be doing the lower body strength and power as well. So you could do the upper body on a Tuesday, the lower body strength and power on a Wednesday. And then lastly, when you get to the preparation phase, you would then have your full body power session. You could do that on the Friday. You won't get too much fatigue from it. If you're worried about too much fatigue, all you do is take a couple of sets off it, and then you can, the next week you can add a little bit of sets if you feel okay with it and build yourself into it. Those sessions won't give you a ton of fatigue and you'll be absolutely fine. Your biggest question might be here, well, okay, if I'm training strength and power, lower body on a Wednesday, and my training sessions on a Wednesday, how will I feel? Well, I wouldn't be too concerned about it, because the chances are your Wednesday squad session will be fairly hard with your team. I can't imagine it's going to be too brutal in season, but it might be a hard conditioning session. But if you do your lower body strength and power on that Wednesday morning, ideally Wednesday morning, still giving you 72, probably 96, well, 80 to 90 hours before your next, 70 to 80 hours until your game. There's plenty of time to recover, because the in-season strength and power work isn't actually that hard a programme of football fitness in terms of intensity and volume. It will get you stronger, it will keep you ticking over, but we're not smashing it into a wall like off-season or like pushing you really, really hard. We'll almost just try to keep you fresh. So you could do it in the morning, train with your squad at night time, and then if you've got that's fine, because then you know in your head, right, my Wednesdays are hard. And if you know your Wednesdays are hard, it then allows you to know, right, well, I need to eat a lot of carbohydrates on this day to fuel myself. I need to make sure I get a good sleep on that Tuesday night. I need to make sure I get a good sleep on that Wednesday night to recover. But you know you can plan for it, because like I said, you know ahead of time that your Wednesday's your hard day. So as a rule of thumb, try and keep your hard days hard rather than try to fluctuate. So if you imagine you played here, you're fatigued, you're still fatigued here, then on the Monday your squad session was harder than you imagined, and you did your upper body work, so you've got a little bit of fatigue seeping over to here, and then you're on a Tuesday, you do your lower body session, you get more fatigue, then you go into the Wednesday with some fatigue from these 2 days, and then you get blasted at training with your squad, so you get 3 days of fatigue now. Now you're on a Thursday, you probably can't be bothered training because you're quite tired, but you might now have to get that third gym session in, the full body power, and one of these 2 days you're going to have to do something here because you don't want to take a full day off. So then you've got a lot of fatigues that's starting to take into game day, whereas I recommend, so accumulate fatigue, reduce fatigue. You might get a little bit of fatigue from your squad session, but here on that Tuesday, you take it off and save it all for the Wednesday, or alternatively, you just do the lower body strength and power, the upper body day like we suggested, which won't be too taxing, and then the Wednesday you double up with your lower body strength and power, Thursday off, Friday. And I'm going to make it a little bit simpler for you, mate, so it's not too confusing, because I know it can be confusing me just talking. So let's go option 1. Monday, we'll go from Saturday. Saturday, game. Sunday, off or upper body. Shocking spelling, upper body. Monday, training or upper body. Obviously, if you did the upper body here, you wouldn't do it here, and vice versa. Tuesday, you could have it off, or again, you could throw your upper body in here. Alright, that's absolutely fine. So you can see you've got pretty much 3 days to get your upper body in. However, you could also potentially do that, which is giving you a lot of options. You might think this is confusing, but if you let me finish this off in a second. Option 1. Wednesday is training. Thursday is, just say, off. Friday is full body power. And then Saturday you're back to your game again. So what I would recommend in an ideal situation, as you can see, you've got options. I would always say day after a game, take it off, right? Especially if you've played 90 minutes. If you've not played 90 minutes, maybe you do and do a little bit of top-up running here, but I would just take it off if I was you. Get in a little bit of a rhythm, try and keep it as close to what you'll normally do. I would then try and do, if you can, it suits your schedule. What has just happened here? Sorry mate, I'm having a shocker. Upper body AM, and then training squad PM. Okay, hopefully this is pretty straightforward so far. Tuesday, you could do your lower body strength and power AM, and then Wednesday training squad and the PM. So what you'll see here is, although this looks like it's 2 days back to back, you've probably got 36 hours of recovery here, because if you go here like say 7 in the morning to the gym, you probably don't train your squad until 7 PM. Okay, so you've got almost 36 hours. So rather than seeing it Tuesday to Wednesday, see it as hours. So you've still got 36 hours to recover from this session to go into this session. So again, this is your build phase. Now you get into the preparation phase. You could take this off, the Thursday off, or skill work, or like light movement, mobility, anything you want to do here. And then the Friday on your schedule, I would go full body power, and that gives you a little bit of adjust the volume as necessary, a little bit of a chance to sort of get the dust off on Saturday for your game. To be honest, I say option 1, just call that your main option. That's what you should aim for, alright? So if you go back to that performance protocol, you should be able to see here that, okay, well, you know, here is your performance phase, here is your performance phase, this is where you have to be at your best, this is when you're getting judged, this is when you want to be fresh, this is your preparation phase in here, this is your build phase, and then in here is your recovery phase. So hope that makes sense. So recovery, we're off our upper body, we can't control this, okay, but worst case scenario, if you kick off at 3 PM here, it's after 48 hours, so your training session might be hard here, and that's absolutely fine. But don't do your low body strength and power here. I wouldn't recommend it. Alright, so try and keep your low body strength and power Tuesday, Wednesday, and then sort of go here. But this Tuesday and Wednesday you can sort of mix and match. This Sunday, Monday you can mix and match, and this Thursday and Friday you can sort of mix and match. That's pretty much the easiest way to do things. If you've got a hectic week and you're really struggling to get things in, just prioritise. Make sure that you get either this session and this session in, so low body strength and power and full body power, or you get this one and this one, lower body and upper body, because that way you're always getting the whole body worked, because this full body gets upper and lower, that gets lower and that gets upper. Hopefully that makes sense. And yeah, that should be a simple little way of adopting things to suit your schedule. And again, you can change it if your game day changes to a different day. If you use the same rules like we did here, you'll be absolutely fine. Now, the second question I've got here is a quick question for you to answer. I have heard so many different things regarding when to eat in terms of times, and don't eat after a certain time, or don't eat at, yep, very common. Just wondering what your thoughts are on it. For me, I usually don't eat breakfast till 9 AM. Maybe snack at 11, lunch at 1, snack at 4. Yep, absolutely fine. Cool. So this is a question I get quite a lot. This is something that I've spoke about before. When I spoke to, I'm sorry, this is just my OCD kicking in. This is something I spoke to before about football fitness and general population, and the danger of social media and Google when it comes to football fitness or S&C for people who want to be athletic and are preparing for football, because a lot of the general population stuff is what you'll find on Google and social media. It's for people who don't have a football match. It's people who are just trying to shift some extra kilos for the beach, or who are trying to put on some muscle to look good for the beach, for like bodybuilding events or CrossFit, or they're just weekend warriors who are just trying to stay fit and healthy. But for a football player, a lot of that goes out the window. A lot of the principles will remain the same, and I'll show you in a second. But this section here is pretty much bang on what happens. It's just confusion. In a nutshell, do not worry, alright? And I'm going to show you why in a second. And a lot of this you probably heard me talk about before. So, excuse me. So you'll see here that this is what gets results. So your question was about timing. Here's the pyramid. This is a pyramid of importance. So obviously the big stuff at the bottom is what matters. Calories, macronutrients, which is your protein, carbs and fats, your micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, and then you've got timing, and then you've got supplements. So as we go up the pyramid, this stuff has got less impact on overall results. So my point being, in your circumstance, if you are trying to put on some muscle, or you're trying to shift body fat, or you're just trying to maintain your body weight and be fueled and ready for football, the main thing that's going to matter is these two things initially, macros and calories, and these are going to get you 80%, 90% of the way there. The micronutrients, of course, are really important, but more often than not, you're probably going to get a lot of this stuff ticked off by eating good food here with the macros and the calories, because if you're eating good sources of protein, you're eating good sources of carbohydrates, and you're eating healthy fats, they're going to have a ton of vitamins in them, and you're going to get the minerals and the veggies and the fruits, etc. naturally. However, if you're someone who doesn't like to eat a lot of fruit and veg, or you don't have a lot of variety in your dinner, your lunches, your breakfast, then maybe you have to pay a bit more attention to here and take in some additional supplementation. But again, that goes back up to the top of the pyramid, like pills, powders, etc. There is a little bit of a caveat to this, because I'm a big advocate of creatine and a big advocate of whey protein. Creatine is really, really effective, but whey protein is just protein. It's effectively just like any other protein, chicken, beef, eggs, all the rest of it. But it's very helpful because a lot of players struggle to get protein in. So definitely, whilst this is the powders as a supplement and it's up the top, it's a very good tool to use to get your protein in for the day. And if you've got a busy lifestyle, throwing it in smoothies or just for taste, for yogurts, etc. So that's what the simplest way of showing you the answer to that is: don't worry about the timing. And this is all that matters. If you were hitting your calories every single day, you're hitting your macronutrients every single day, you're eating loads of fruit and veg, you were taking some additional vitamin D, and you were taking some additional magnesium, and everything was, you think I'm maxing everything out, then you might go to timing. Like, the more you got this pyramid, you can start to get more advanced. But until you're absolutely nailing these stuff to the point where you are at the exact body fat you want to be at, you've got the amount of muscle you want to be at, I would not concern myself too much about it. The timing would be what suits your schedule. Now, there is a couple of little caveats to it, again, to use that word once more, just because you're a football player. And what I mean by that is, if we go to like the 4 big things that matter, the type of food you're eating, the calorie balance, the energy, and the vitamins and minerals, the one thing I haven't touched on massively is energy. Now, obviously, calories is energy, carbohydrates, which is part of your macronutrients, is energy, but as a football player, you need to prioritise game day energy, or the hardest part of your training week. Alright, so in that circumstance, you can see here I've got the type of food, and this is the types of food of high quality. From here you'll get a lot of those micronutrients. I'll come out with that, and I'm just going to show you this, which if you go into the football fitness resource section, you'll see this stuff. But ultimately, this document's in here because there is a slight element of timing, but not the way that you've suggested, or you've asked the question, like, oh, should you eat before a certain time or after a certain time? More so leading around game day, so 30, 60, 40 hours leading into game day, you want to bump up your carbohydrates because that's where our energy comes from. Nothing to do with, if you fast till 1 o'clock, then you'll get better results, or if you do all these little things, they're not going to be the difference makers in you getting the results. The only time timing is going to be a big impact for you is going to be, when do you eat close to a hard exercise or hard game day. If you're trying to eat a shit ton of food right before game day, then naturally you're going to feel a bit bloated, feel uncomfortable, and not get the performance that you want. Same time, if you don't eat enough around game day, and you're sort of, maybe you're in a fat loss phase, you're in pre-season, you're trying to shift a bit of timber, and you're coming up to a hard training session, you've not eaten enough, and you feel depleted and tired and fatigued, and you can't run properly, then obviously you know from that perspective, well, yeah, you've hit your calories, but your timing has to be better, where you have to maybe eat more calories closer to that session, so you've actually stacked all your calories to a time where your body needs it, as opposed to spreading it out throughout the day. But that's more a tactical way of looking at it when it comes to nutrition, but if it's just general health, body fat, or gaining lean muscle, we've got principles and we've got strategies. So if we talk about principles would be this stuff. Here's the principles. I would ask that question all the time. Have you hit your calories? Have you hit your macronutrient targets? Are you eating like an adult? Are you getting some fruit and vegetables in? Are you having good quality food? If you're doing that 80-90% of the time, you're fine. If you're ticking these 3 boxes, it doesn't really matter how you achieve that. If you're doing it, having it by doing intermittent fasting and eating 2 meals a day versus your teammate who's eating 6 meals a day, it doesn't matter at all. The only time I'd be concerned about it is if you said, I'm eating this way, I'm doing everything you're telling me, I'm following all these principles, but I still feel lethargic when it comes to game day, or I don't feel recovered enough. That's when you look at the strategy. Okay, what strategy are you using? Your strategy is pretty much 6 meals a day, pretty much breakfast, lunch, dinner, a couple of snacks, or 2 or 3 snacks. So there's nothing wrong with that. For somebody else, that strategy might not work. They might be somebody who goes, I don't like breakfast in the morning, and they don't eat until 11 o'clock because that's their first break at work. As long as at the end of the day they're getting their calories, their macros and their micros and all the rest of it in, they're probably going to get really good results. Again, the only way they wouldn't is if they're going to game day and they feel lethargic, then they go, oh well, maybe I can't intermittent fast on a Saturday morning because my kick-off's at 12 PM and I need to have breakfast and some carbohydrates leading into that game. Completely independent, but again, think principles versus strategies. So when someone starts telling you, this is the best way to do things, you should do this intermittent fasting or keto or carnivore diet or eating 10 times a day versus 4, all this stuff, these are like, they're arguing over the very, very small percentage stuff. The strategies is what you use to find out what works for you as a person and what suits your schedule. The principles is what actually works. So you look at any diet that works for anything, they tend to follow in these principles. All right, so you're not going to lose body fat without getting the calories right. You're not going to gain muscle without it. You're going to have no energy without calories. You're not going to be able to recover properly without protein and carbs. For football anyway, you're not going to have enough energy without carbs. You're not going to recover well, stay healthy and all the rest of it without vitamins and minerals. And then the timing and supplementation is just the icing on the cake of this pyramid. Now I hope that makes sense. I'll go back to this here. Yep, so I mean there's not too much to really write in here, but if this suits your schedule, then you stick to that. That's pretty much the long and short of that. Gave a bit of a long-winded answer, but hopefully if I just says to you, calories, macros, micros, eat good quality, 80% plus of the time, and then principles, better or greater than strategies, okay? And then you choose the strategy that works best for you. And then in season, game day, you've got a bit of an asterisk here because we are looking at carb intake higher or calorie intake higher. And then obviously if your calorie intake is higher on a day leading up to game day, you know a day off you'd have to eat a little bit less. And I may actually have this slide here to show you that quickly. There we go. So if you had a game day coming up here, you could eat 2,400 calories here, and then Saturday you're back to 2,000, and then the Sunday the off day you're at 1,700, and your weekly calorie intake drops down again. Now I hope that makes sense. If you've got any questions on that, just shoot me a message. I'll be happy to answer it in more detail, but I think that's pretty much it. The most important thing is this is always the answer, alright? So don't Google it anymore. Honestly, this is the answer. You might see something on social media and it goes, oh, I wonder if that worked for me, I wonder how that works. This is nutrition 99% of the time. There's going to be individual nuances along the way in terms of you may be asking yourself, oh well, this doesn't sit right in my stomach. That's fine. Or I don't do well when I eat that close to training or that far away from training. Game day is a good example. Some people like eating a lot on game day, some like eating very little, but they still need on that Friday, the day before game day and the 36 hours leading into it, to have enough carbs and enough calories so they're okay on that game day. There's always individual things, but as a whole, this is the answer, alright? So if you see something on social media or YouTube or your mate at a barbecue tells you, try this, run it through this little bullshit detector. Is it focusing these principles, then yeah, cool. It might be a good strategy, and it might work for them. It may even work for you, but you need to work. Would it work in my football schedule, with my schedule, and the way I like to eat? And if this works for you, mate, then keep doing what you're doing. If it's keeping you consistent, then that's 99% of it, mate. If you follow a new thing you can't stick to, but your mate said it's better, or some social media person said it's better, then you're going to be eventually pulling your hair out because you can't stick to it and getting frustrated. But this is absolutely fine. So that's pretty much the gist of it. Any questions moving forward, just let me know. I will put this into the community so you all have a copy of it. I'll also start a new folder for the coaching call so you can come and find these conversations moving forward. I don't think anyone came on today. No one came on, not a problem. Me just sitting myself like a loner. But that's absolutely fine. Just the most important thing is I don't mind if no one's here. Just make sure you're sending me questions so I can help you. If you want to jump on and I can get into more individual detail, then not a problem. That's what I'm here for. Okay, but enjoy your Monday nights, and I'll see you all soon.